Today I'm going to read an excerpt from Chapter 6, A Crazy Little Thing, September 24th, 2015. It was a sunny autumn morning at the little cabin in the woods. I pulled on my hiking boots, then began the process of leashing my two dogs who, as usual, were more excited to go on a hike than cooperate getting out the door. Today I wanted to explore new terrain. I'd recently heard of a trail that led to a valley of red rock formations. To get there, we'd need to be sneaky. The only access to the trailhead was through Cowboy Marl's property. I was determined to give it a try, and it was a weekday, so I knew he'd likely be gone. Whew, we made it without a hitch, and I headed out on the vertical switchback trail. Over the next mile, the terrain changed from earthy brown tones to crimson reds. The landscape was similar to the red rocks found in Moab or southern Utah. It was stunning. The sun was shining brightly, igniting the leaves and wild grasses in the vivid shade of autumn. As I hiked along the trail, my mind turned back to a few hundred years ago. In the 19th century, Immigration Canyon Trail was significant to early Western history. Immigration Trail was the original route used to traverse the Great Wasatch Mountains. The trail was opened by the Donner Party in 1846. Although it was a narrow passageway, it was large enough for teams and wagons to pass. Similar to the majority of the trails across the North American continent, it was established by indigenous peoples, Fremont Indians, then early Shoshone, Ute, Goshute, and Paiute. The trails were utilized by pioneer settlers, overland wagon trains, freight, main lines, and the Pony Express, and more. This land was no stranger to the downtrodden and the weary. Settlers heading west endured arduous journeys. Immigration Canyon Trail began the final descent into the Salt Lake Valley, a milestone and a resting place for weary trekkers. I could only imagine the relief and elation that washed over them as they caught a glimpse of the valley below. I stood at the edge of an overlook, which opened into a valley of red rock formations. In certain areas, the steep bluff line was etched with wagon wheel markings from over a century ago. I stared at those ruts. It was difficult to fathom how thousands of settlers endured the rocky terrain. I thought about the path which led me to Immigration Canyon. I was also a weary traveler seeking respite. Just a few short years ago, I'd never have imagined myself here, doing this. Yet it felt so undeniably right for me. I sat down to rest on a rock as my dogs curled around my feet. I mentally delved deeper into the subject. I'd been on this planet for nearly 43 years. For the most part, I'd done an average enough job at lifing, but don't you think we ought to have been sent with an instruction manual? Well, for me, I was done listening to others and their theories on how I should live my life. No longer was I buying into the how-tos and agendas and power trips. I was bound and determined to build a strong foundation for my own self by researching and learning from the ancient philosophers around the globe. While I was at it, I clearly set the intention to stay far, far away from all fairy tales and self-created illusions. I could clearly see how my adult choices had caused suffering and pain for myself, and more importantly, my 3 children. I was the only one who could fix those relationships. In my heart, I knew it had to start with me. I had to get real with myself. That's why I was here, doing this wannabe hippie thing in Immigration Canyon. It might sound like a cliche, however, I didn't know me much at all. I knew old versions of me, the ones who matched certain roles I'd been playing in the life I created up until 10 months ago. One by one, I flushed all the old roles straight down the toilet. The one traditional role I kept was that of being a mother. I vowed to make things right with my children. I wanted to always be honest, transparent, even willing to have tough conversations that no parent would ever want to. To answer the questions, apologize, and strive to forge a new path with my 3 humans. I did not want a generation gap to limit me. I wanted them to feel that they could confide in me. I held hope that someday they'd come to understand their mom's road was exactly what it needed to be. It created an essential pathway of evolution. It alone is the reason I am who I am today. Possibly they may even realize one day that my life's path was beneficial to their individual paths of conscious evolution.